Coming up on Network Africa, Angola's Electoral Commission declares the ruling party's candidate, João Lourenço, winner of last week's election. Kenya election petition hearings begins in Nairobi. Plus, Ukrainian grain ship docks in Djibouti. Hello and welcome to the program today. I'm Nayo Olarinde. We begin in Angola, where the ruling party, the People's Movement for the Liberation of Angola, MPLA, has won re-election in the general elections held last week. The National Electoral Commission confirmed this, and João Lourenço has been reinstated as president. Well, João Lourenço celebrated the election results, toasting to his victory in the capital. According to the commission, the MPLA won 51.17% of the vote, with its longtime opponent, the National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, UNITA, tallying 43.95% of the vote. The MPLA has ruled Angola since independence from Portugal in 1975 and defeated UNITA in the long-running civil war. Over in Kenya, a 7-judge bench has begun hearing petitions seeking to overturn the election of William Ruto as Kenya's president-elect. Led by Chief Justice Martha Koome, the judges struck out 2 petitions and consolidated 7 others because they raised similar issues and sought the same orders. The court also rejected 3 applications, including a request by Mr. Ruto, who sought to bar the Law Society of Kenya from the case. Well, the court has now set out 9 issues of determination that will shape the final ruling set to be delivered on the 5th of September. The Nigerian High Commission in Pretoria is advising Nigerians living in South Africa to be vigilant and exercise caution in their activities due to recent utterances of the proponents of the Operation Dudu and their threats to attack foreign nationals in the country. According to a statement it released, it says the group, through public notice and video clips circulated on social media, has informed of plans to march against foreign migrants in South Africa starting from the 2nd of September 2022, and especially on foreign business owners, shops and undocumented foreign nationals. The Commission is calling on Nigerian residents in South Africa to exercise caution and be watchful in carrying out their day-to-day activities. Meanwhile, South Africa's government has condemned the actions of some citizens who have been preventing people from accessing healthcare services at the Kalafong Hospital at Riville based on the color of their skin and language spoken. According to a statement released, preventing access to healthcare can have dire consequences to patients and the negative impact on the public health system and to citizens at large. Well, this statement comes after members of Operation Dudu gathered at the hospital trying to bar some foreign nationals from accessing treatment. Well, Channels Television spoke to the National Administrator for Operation Dudu, Pat Mogalusi, who says undocumented foreign nationals should not have access to medical services in their country.
Sample, my sister, as you can see here at the entrance of the facility, there's an admission police saying everyone coming here, they need to produce their identity, proof of identity, whether ID or passport or proof of refugee status. But this hospital, this facility, doesn't want to enforce their own police. Then as a result, we're suffering as community. Then foreigners are just do as they please. They just get here without proper papers, then occupying our hospital beds without proper documents, whereas South Africans are on the queue, long queue, and being returned back because of lack of hospital bed. Clinics are not capacitated more than hospital. So this is the only hospital here in Atteridgeville. Then you find that at the clinic they says a certain medication is not there or a certain specialist is not there. People who are here for specialists, their governments must compensate our country for their people to use our resources. Remember, it can be that in Zimbabwe they got a constitution saying medical care or medical is only given to citizens and permanent residents, whereas their people are flocking into our country, receiving our medication without paying for it. Even if you pay, me, I'm paying. So what's so special about foreigners? What is it that we owe certain countries or Africa or Asia or Europe for that matter? We don't owe them anything. We go to their countries, we comply with their laws. Simple.
Well, our South Africa Bureau Chief Betty Dibia joins us now for more updates on the Operation Dudu movement, live from the Kalafong Hospital. Hello, Betty. Help us understand what the situation is on ground and, what the members of Operation Dudu are really asking for.
Thank you. Actually, for the past 3 weeks, the group known as Operation Dudu, which has an axe to grind or are complaining about the high number of undocumented foreign nationals in the country. And of course, you have those elements who include every foreign national in the country. They've been camped outside this hospital in Kalafong, outskirts of Pretoria in South Africa. Their major demand is that all undocumented foreign nationals or any foreign national who is here, in some cases who is working here or who is taking treatment here and is not willing to pay for that treatment should be removed or barred from the hospital. Their complaint is that there's so much pressure on the health system in the country with long queues because there's so many foreign nationals who are coming to use the services of the hospital, blocking the chances for the locals to have a chance to have treatment in the hospital. So they've been camped outside here, checking people, asking them where they live, where they're from, and all that. But now we have a court interdict by the hospital authorities, barring them from doing what they're doing. They're not in groups anymore, but you still have a few. Some of the officials are here trying to ensure that the foreign nationals or documented foreign nationals do not have access to the hospital.
Oh, Betty, how are foreigners, how are they reacting to this? They've been asked to be careful. We know that a statement went out to Nigerians living in South Africa to be careful about this, and even other nationals living in the country. How have they been reacted?
Many people are fearing for their lives. You don't want to be labeled foreigner in an African country or any country for that matter. And apart from all the other emotions that foreign nationals feel in the country, some are actually worried about what could happen to them if situations like this are not, contained. We have that incident where the member of the executive committee of Limpopo province, an equivalent of a commissioner in South Africa, who was talking to a Zimbabwean national who was taking treatment at the hospital. It's brought up a lot of debate in the country. Some say she was humiliating the patient while addressing the president of Zimbabwe. But some are saying she's raising issues that a lot of Zimbabweans are crossing the Limpopo River, coming into the south. Of course, there are people who have decided to leave the country, but there are people who are insisting on staying. Many would like to be documented, but even that process is quite difficult in the country. Many people have applications that have been there for many years, 3, 4, even 5 years, and some have upped and left. But there are people who say going back is not an option. It's not a good feeling being at the receiving end of this. But there is also a call for the home countries to do their best to ensure that people don't troop out of their country to put pressure on the systems of another country.
All right then, thank you so much. Our South Africa Bureau Chief Betty Dibia. Well, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed 9 people to form an anti-corruption advisory council to help in the fight against corruption. The National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council has been tasked with preventing a recurrence of state capture in South Africa. Well, the team is expected to help with the effective implementation of the anti-corruption strategy by the government, civil society and the private sector. The panel is also expected to guide Mr. President on the government's response to implementing the recommendations of the Zondo report. On a more cheery note, the first shipment of grain from Ukraine to Africa since the war began has docked at the Red Sea port in Djibouti. The Lebanese-flagged MV Brave Commander is carrying 23 tons of wheat bound for neighboring Ethiopia, but took 2 weeks to travel here from the Black Sea. Well, Djibouti is a tiny country with a population of 900,000 people, but it has one of the busiest ports on the continent. Right now, workers have started boarding the vessel to offload the precious cargo. 2 gigantic cranes have been positioned for the operation. The shipment has been arranged by the United Nations to get the wheat to countries at risk of starvation. Well, the humanitarian situation in northern Ethiopia continues to be alarming, with some reports of displacement in frontline areas in Amhara and the Afar regions. Briefing journalists in New York, UN spokesperson for the Secretary General, Stephen Dujarric, says in Amhara region, a curfew has been imposed in some areas. Well, he adds that deliveries of humanitarian supplies by road into Tigray have been suspended since last week on August the 24th.
Our colleagues are telling us that the humanitarian situation in northern Ethiopia continues to be alarming. There are unconfirmed reports of displacements in frontline areas in Amhara and the Afar regions. In Amhara, a curfew was imposed in Debark, in Desi, and in Waldia from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m. This is impacting the movements of civilians, access to medical emergency services, and of course, commercial services. Deliveries of humanitarian supplies by road into Tigray have been suspended since last week on August 24th. Similarly, the UN's aviation service, the Humanitarian Air Service, has been unable to fly in and out of Tigray since September 25th, halting the transport of operational cash as well as rotation of humanitarian workers. We, along with our NGO partners, continue to provide humanitarian aid to the affected people as security allows. In Tigray, humanitarian partners have resumed distribution of food and other vital humanitarian supplies.
High Commissioner Bachelet, she's leaving on Wednesday.
In the meantime, the United Nations says it continues to closely monitor the situation in and around Tripoli, Libya, following violent clashes on Saturday. Mr. Stephen Dujarric says the fighting reportedly resulted in at least 32 deaths and 159 casualties, with children, as well as damage to civilian infrastructure.
I can tell you that we continue to closely monitor the situation in and around Tripoli following the violent clashes that occurred on Saturday. The fighting reportedly resulted in at least 32 deaths and 159 casualties, which include children, as well as damage to civilian infrastructure. We extend our deep condolences to the families who lost loved ones and wish a speedy recovery to all those injured in the clashes. And we reiterate our call on the parties to protect civilians and to refrain from taking any action that could escalate tensions and deepen divisions. And you will have seen that in a statement we issued on Saturday, the Secretary General said he was following with deep concern the situation in Tripoli. He called for an immediate cessation of violence in the capital and urged Libyan parties to engage in genuine dialogue to address the ongoing political impasse and not to use force to resolve their differences. He further calls on the parties to protect civilians and refrain from taking any actions that could escalate tensions and deepen divisions. We remain ready to provide good offices and mediation to help Libyans chart a way out of the political deadlock, which is increasingly threatening Libya's hard-won stability.
Still to come on the program. For the love of animals, the Tunisian veterinarian and animal lover turned her house into a shelter for the little ones. Details in a moment. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Somalia's Defense Minister Abdikadir Mohamed Nur and the visiting commander of the U.S. Africa Command, AFRICOM, General Michael Langley, have met to discuss the war on terrorism during a meeting on Monday. Well, the meeting was held at the U.S. Embassy in Mogadishu and was also attended by U.S. Envoy Larry Andre and the Somali Prime Minister's security advisor. Mr. Noor says he and the AFRICOM commander shared mutual commitment in enhancing the capacity and capabilities of the Somali National Armed Forces, as well as fighting Al-Shabaab in the country. The new Somali government has vowed to step up the fight against Al-Shabaab, which has intensified its attacks across the country this year. The United Nations mission in South Sudan has received a new force commander to help with the peacekeeping operations in the country. The new commander says he's privileged to be with the South Sudanese people and looks forward to earnestly performing his duties for the cause of durable peace and stability.
Sunny skies in South Sudan welcome the new United Nations mission in South Sudan force commander, Lieutenant General Mohan Subramanian from India, as he began his tour of duty in the world's largest peacekeeping mission. After accepting the handover of charge from Deputy Force Commander Main Ullah Chowdhury, it was time for the new head of the military component to inspect an honor guard where peacekeepers from Rwanda, Nepal, China, Ethiopia, Bangladesh and India marked his arrival.
Any military leader leading a multinational force is a matter of honor. That I have been afforded the opportunity to do so at UNMISS, which is the largest United Nations peacekeeping mission in the world today, in South Sudan, which is the youngest country of the world today. That is indeed a great privilege, honor and pride. With utmost humility, I take up this honor and promise that I would earnestly endeavor and meaningfully contribute to the cause of sustainable peace here along with the mission.
This isn't the force commander's first stint with UN peacekeeping, having served as the Blue Helmet in the United Nations mission in Sierra Leone, and he prioritizes the power of partnerships in achieving peace and progress.
There is a common strain in Sierra Leone and other missions and South Sudan, which is the fact that unless there is a collaborative effort of all stakeholders within the mission, within the UN family, between the UN family and the regional, international, and most importantly the national partners, as well as the South Sudanese communities. Without such a collaborative effort, the path to sustainable peace may be slow. And therefore, it's of prime importance to achieve such collaboration.
The top military man at United Nations mission in South Sudan has already hit the ground running, meeting the mission's senior leaders to understand the political and security complexities in South Sudan as troops under his command work to protect civilians.
In East Africa, at least 19 people have been killed and 21 others injured after police in Madagascar's southeastern town of Ikongo opened fire on a group of people who were angered by the kidnapping of a child with albinism. According to the police, those injured in the incident are receiving treatment at the local hospital. Some 500 people armed with machetes allegedly attempted to force their way into a police station where 4 kidnapping suspects were being held. The head of the police defended the police actions, saying they resorted to self-defense after trying to avoid the confrontation. An investigation into the shooting has now been opened. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, is urging more donor support for solutions and praises progress in refugee protection in Tanzania. Mr. Grandi concluded a 3-day visit to the country with a call for more donor support for solutions, including sustainable voluntary returns. Tanzania currently hosts over 248,000 refugees and asylum seekers, mainly from Burundi and the Democratic Republic of Congo.
for children born in exile not to have a birth certificate may condemn them to statelessness when they grow up. And also in situations of repatriation, this is one, it's very important for them to go back and have something proving their identity. Since 2017, thousands of Burundians that have opted for this choice to go back voluntarily. The challenges back home for those who have not yet chosen to return are very often linked to economic causes, lack of work, lack of land, and other challenges of this type. And in addition, some security issues. But I do believe that with more resources in Burundi, in general, lack of resources is a very big challenge in this region. The Burundian refugee situation is one of the least supported in the world. And I have seen today myself how much people need in terms of very basic requirements.
A plan by the government of the Central African Republic to allow foreigners to acquire citizenship and land using a new cryptocurrency has been ruled as unconstitutional by the country's top court. Well, last month, the government launched Sango Coin amid a sharp fall in Bitcoin prices and doubts over the project's viability in a country with poor internet connection and destabilized by conflict. Well, sales of the initial $21 million on offer have been slow, with just over 5% of the target bought in the hours after its launch on the 21st of July. According to the Sango website, foreign investors could obtain citizenship for $60,000 worth of crypto, with the equivalent Sango coins held as collateral for 5 years and e-residency for $6,000 held for 3 years. Investors would also be able to buy a 250 square meter plot of land for $10,000, with the Sango coins locked away for a decade. Well, climate change and a harsh summer have led to a severe drop in water reserves in Morocco, and the country is faced with a reduction in rainfall levels. Well, the authorities have decided in July to ban the use of drinking water to irrigate green spaces and wash cars, amongst other measures. Well, the decision is aimed at preventing the uncontrolled use of drinking water for any other purpose apart from human consumption. Well, many people believe animals have rights to life and shelter, and this is why a Tunisian veterinarian and animal lover has opened her home to many displaced cats and dogs. She believes these animals should be catered for rather than being maltreated.
To save stray animals from the clutches of death and human violence, Tunisian veterinarian Raouda Mansour turned her house into an animal shelter in the governorate of Naboul, northeastern Tunisia, fostering 150 cats, 25 dogs. Mansour, who has a passion for animals from a young age, said stray animals are badly mistreated by citizens and the government, which kills them in collective sniping operations.
The animals you see here, they are all sterilized. They are all vaccinated. I mean, I practice my profession on animals that came from the street, and I want to provide another life for them. I am very happy with this life. There are many who ask me how can I stand seeing difficult cases, but I say I am very lucky to be able to treat them.
The animal shelter, established in 2007, is supported by Mansour herself and animal welfare associations that donate food and medicine.
There are a lot of difficult cases that come to me. Like you'd find the dog bleeding from everywhere while he's alive, crying. And I would say, where is the compassion? Where are the compassionate hearts?
Mansour's friends also created an organization called Dr. Mansour Support Association to fundraise for the shelter to enable her continue her work and get animals off the streets.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.